Welcome to another episode of the Church Things podcast, where, believe it or not, we talk about church things. And in the studio today with me, I have, as always, Tim Beasley. Bill Fink is back and better than ever. And Scott, you've been on 2 podcasts now, I think. So, I mean, at this point, you're just a seasoned podcaster, okay? You're basically the Joe Rogan of Central. But today, we're going to be talking about outreach, benevolence. How do we at Central work with our community? We work with not just Fort Smith, but the River Valley. And how do we feel like we're, doing our part, not doing our part, and just alleviating hardship, poverty, all the things that we know are issues in our neighborhoods. But the reason I thought it'd be fun to get in here and do this podcast is last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, in the news and everything, there's been, there was the government shutdown. It was a long one. I don't remember the exact number of days. Somebody could quote me on that one. I don't remember. But during the government shutdown, SNAP benefits were not going out. And it was a real, worry for people, especially in the month of November, how that was going to work. And during all that going on, there was a lady on TikTok who, this lady doesn't live anywhere close to here. That's the way your algorithm works, is you get to watch people that live on other sides of the country. And she started calling around to churches in her town and pretending to have a baby and need $20 worth of formula. And if the church receptionist had any kind of, pause or follow up, these poor churches, they were just getting reamed. And some of them, maybe it sounded like they legitimately didn't have any kind of system in which they helped people, which I think that's also sad. But I also know that, those churches probably also don't have a full-time pastor or, a way to take care of, needs within their own body. But that just got me thinking. And, I thought maybe, people just with current events and things, they, wonder what we do at Central and how do we go about that? And do we have people come to our church and ask for help, or do we have a food bank? Do we, are we working with the homeless shelters in town? And so what does that kind of just look like in general? So, I'm just going to toss it to Tim first. You kind of open us up, and then we'll just kind of jump in.
So the easy answer is what we plan for, and what we plan for is what we affectionately refer to as our strategic partners, and we do have several strategic partners, folks that are more geared to handling specific needs than we can do. So you mentioned for those who have housing insecurity, right? The homeless and folks that are just, hard times. We support the efforts of Hope Campus and Community Rescue Mission. One is for just general population. Community Rescue Mission works with families. We're not equipped. We don't have houses to put people in. We don't have housing or apartments or places, even in our church building that would be conducive to housing a family. So it just makes sense that we would partner with somebody else who has that mission. And so while we have the mission to take care of those who are hungry and hurting and homeless, we don't always have the structure or the infrastructure or the facility. And so that's the easy, low-hanging. We partner with people that are doing work that we think is in line with our mission. Yeah. The harder part of that is
or I guess, sorry, not to cut you off, but just spell that out. Like when you say we partner with, does that mean that we're just telling people to go there? What does that mean that we partner with them?
But we put our money where our mouth is. And so we support those organizations with part of our mission's dollars to fulfill the mission in our community. And some of that gives us, it's advantageous for us, not because we just move people out of our sphere of influence, but because we can pick up the phone because we have a relationship with people that are doing this kind of work and call and say, hey, we want to bring a family to you, or we need you guys to kind of engage this. And so there have been several times that Bill or I, mostly just because we've been here the longest, have been able to call the folks that we have a relationship with and say, is it possible for us to bring a family? And the beauty of it is because they're experts in the field, they're able to vet the needs and figure out what is the best way. The harder part is not dealing with those folks that we have specific strategic partnerships with, but it's the ongoing what I would call our reactive ministry, not proactive ministry, and that would include things like our food bank. It's the random calls, hey, I see that you're a church and you help people. And, Bill and I have laughed before about, we're not sure what list we got on.
Yeah.
Because there are folks that say, hey, we know you help so-and-so. Can you help us? And so there are some things that we do that are our food bank. The government shutdown, I looked it up, is 43 days.
47.
And the last couple of weeks, we do our food ministry on Thursdays. And that's what we plan. But the last couple of weeks, we have seen record numbers of people getting food. When I say that's what we plan, the other side of that is we still have food. And sometimes people call on Monday because there's a need, or they call on Friday when our offices are closed, but we still answer the phones.
Yeah.
And so there we're kind of reacting to, and it gets a little bit harder because, it becomes very subjective. Anybody can come on Thursday and get food. We're just not going to turn people down.
Yeah.
But then it starts, there is a segment of the population, oddly enough, that I don't know how they're doing it, but they're scamming, and
I looked it up. And this is a good thing. It has its pros and its cons. But we have between 45 and 55 food banks of some sort, food assistance sites in the River Valley.
Yeah.
So if you want, to, use all of them every.
Now, what I don't know is how there's any monetary value in taking the food that we prepare, and typically we prepare food in packages that feed a family of 4 for about 7 days. And if you can figure out how to trade that for gambling money or drugs or alcohol, that's not on us. Our job scripturally is to feed the hungry.
Yeah.
And Bill and I, it's kind of comical because years ago we got pretty cynical because it was really a strange thing that it's like every time we turned around, somebody was taking advantage, and we got cynical, which is why we do our food ministry the way we do now.
Well, one of the things that happens is you have to be very careful when you're giving. Jesus said, Matthew 26, the poor will always be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if that's true, then this is going to be true also, that you'll have the opportunity to get scammed.
Yeah.
And we're doing this in the name of Jesus, and we're trying to meet needs.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to meet needs for a greater reason. Okay. In our food bank, not too many months ago, almost every week we share the gospel.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we also shared the gospel with someone, and Scott was there to be able to baptize that lady.
Wow.
Okay. So that's the greater need, and hoping that reaching out benevolently and caring for those needs. But let me tell you, and you wouldn't think in the middle of this country that we live in, with the affluence that we have, the needs, especially on those 65 and up, and on the children, are incredible in this area. And there are a lot of places here where people can get help. Okay. We live in an area where I think people do care about the poor, and the churches, many of them do. We won't meet all the needs, and if we think we will, then I think that's where we err.
Yeah.
And
I will tell you, and you've started this with the social experiment.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about the social experiment is that young lady was calling churches.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, she was calling churches because
She knows
churches help.
they're supposed to help.
And within our community, one of the hardest, most frustrating things for us is that there is duplication of needs, or duplication of services and redundancy in what we're doing, and everybody wants to do the same kind of the same kind of ministry, and being able to work together is oftentimes there's some ego in that amongst churches, and I blame the pastors because most folks just want to feed hungry people. And so there is some duplication of services. And when we talk about like homeless ministry or, feeding programs, there are multiple places that you can get food every day. And almost all of them, in fact, I would dare say that all of them are because somebody has a spiritual conviction and sees the spiritual mandate for us to help other people. So, in that social experiment, a lot of churches got a black eye.
Yeah.
But I did notice that she wasn't calling schools.
Yeah.
And she wasn't calling hospitals.
Yeah.
And she wasn't calling lawyers' offices and Walmart. She was calling churches because churches help. So the more difficult thing, and I think ultimately where we have to go in this conversation is not just what does the church corporately do, but what does the church individually do? Because most of our local outreach that we're involved in is because the Lord laid something on somebody's heart.
Yeah.
And we said, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And we should be, every member's a minister.
Mm-hmm.
We're all part of we all have the mandate to reach out, to make disciples. And so, so much of what we do is because the Lord laid this on somebody else's heart, and not us, not the professional pastors, but those who are sitting in the pew.
Yeah,
those are the best ministries.
No, for sure. Yeah, so I was actually gonna have Scott. I want you to talk about that. Like, just if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, what are we doing, and how can I get involved?" And I think obviously this time of year is obviously a sweet time of year, where we got Thanksgiving and Christmas and we got a lot of opportunities, but even just talk about things that are, that we're always doing, things that you can always get plugged in on.
Yeah. So this time of year, we've got a ton of giving opportunities. That's this year. This time of year, money, that's the easiest thing to give. That's a good thing. But it's also, it's the low barrier. You can always give money if you have it. But you mentioned strategic partners. We feed at Hope Campus Community Rescue Mission on a regular basis. That's an easy avenue to get involved with physical, local outreach, boots on the ground. But as far as how can the body be connected to ministry, if you've got something that's on your heart, you can come tell us about it.
Yeah.
But that may be as far as it gets. All of us would probably turn around and say, okay, well, you have that burden, so let's figure out how we can implement that. How can that be a practical thing? How does this align with our calling, with the Bible? And let's walk through that. And we can probably find some funding for you, but it's very likely that you're going to take some ownership of it. Because for us, if we just take ownership of everything, then we become bogged down and can't do other things,
or just it won't be very good because it wasn't our, it wasn't our idea.
We can try anything, but it may not be successful or fulfill the vision that maybe you or somebody else had.
Yeah. I think too about just mentoring at the schools, and just that's not one that you often think of. We often think of like a food bank kind of thing, or a community rescue mission, Hope Campus. But I think to use your phrase, boots on the ground, going into the schools. And I mean, what else schools are we in, Bill? We're in
Darby, we're in Chaffin, we're at Kimmons to some degree. We are at Southside. We are indirectly involved at Northside because of our involvement with the other Northside schools.
Yeah.
And the doors are wide open and the needs are amongst the students.
Oh man, yeah.
They're just as big a need as a food need for a family trying to fill those needs. And the kids are, this is what I see today. The kids are open today like they've never been open to our reaching out to them.
And I think that we all have so many stories where like you're sitting down with a student in a school, and because of your relationship with them, they are going to be open about what is going on at home. And when, I think about like, Thanksgiving and just Christmas and this time of year where they're vulnerable and honest about what is going on at their house and how times are hard. And because you have that relationship, you're able to, see the need and then fill the need that way, and it's like we have lots of opportunities this time of year, like you're saying, where it's like we're asking people to give to, to donate blankets and coats and gloves to a nursing home here in town for Christmas. We're asking, to donate gifts to the Kistler Center, these families with children with special needs. It's like, obviously those things, we want help and we need your help in those, but there's opportunities where, because you actually go physically, if you actually go physically to Community Rescue Mission and you form the relationship, or you go to Kimmons Junior High and you form the relationship, when you feel that monetary need, it means something else, because it's opening up to other conversations, like you're saying, where like, Scott got to baptize somebody a couple weeks ago.
Well, that's because our team that helps out on Thursdays is great at what they do, and I just happen to be the guy walking by.
Yeah.
But something that I think there's this burden of responsibility. We've got to create something new. I was reading a book. I haven't read a lot of books in my life, but one of the things that I read one time is maybe whatever the Lord is leading you to is as simple as taking a short walk with your eyes open. And who would have thought,
Yeah.
But whenever I was working in the corporate world, I went into a place every day that people were hurting, just in the same way that any human would hurt. But I could easily go in there, put my head down for 8 hours and grind out emails or whatever it is and miss the opportunity, versus if I took the time, went on a walk with somebody, took them to lunch, and be intentional where I'm at. Far more fruit can come from that than creating some kind of ministry I do outside of work. And I'm not discounting that at all.
For sure.
But where we're at, the Lord has you where you're at for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's just so key.
I think that is such a huge thing to like keep at the forefront of our minds, that like, I did open it up with, there's these things going on in society and in the news and with politics. And then, you have these TikTokers making social experiments, and it can just seem like, to some extent, whether it's poverty or, homelessness or, these issues, we just talk about them as if they're issues. And then when, we're presented with the actual opportunity to go and meet those people and have a relationship with those people, it's no longer an issue. It's actually, you're seeing, what Jesus talked about when he talks about being the hands and feet of the Lord to those in need. It's like, oh, this is what that actually looks like. It's not just a system that needs to be fixed. It's not just a program that needs to be built. It's a relationship that, I could actually be in,
Well, one of the things that I saw happen in the last couple of years, one of our ladies said, I'm never going to get involved in that outreach stuff you're doing. That's just not for me. And so I challenged her, and this is kind of what I'm getting ready to say here is the challenge. If you want to be involved, come go with us on some things and watch. Get your feet wet, and we'll help you find a place to serve. But this lady came and she said, I'm not going to do that. And I challenged her to go, and she went over to the rescue mission with us, and she served food. Now she's the first one for her small group every other month to sign up and ready to go. And she's in her 80s.
Wow.
Okay. And so we've seen, not only is she reaching out, meeting some needs, but she's meeting our people. And now we're trying to push our people there.
Yeah.
Okay, don't just serve them food. Go out to their tables and get to know them and have a relationship with them. I think that's where Jesus, I think Tim and I can say that's where we've changed in the last many years, is from giving a donut to giving a donut and a handshake. And we're interested in you and moving our people instead of just the staff.
No, for sure. Yeah.
It is interesting too, because one of the, I think it was about a year ago that we came to the conclusion that almost all of our outreach as a church involves food in some way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're really good at that. For being a non-Baptist church.
I was just saying, we're not even Baptist. Refer to the last podcast. If you just found out we're not Baptist, go listen to the last podcast.
And a friend of mine challenged me several years ago with, there's an old African proverb that says, empty bellies have no ears. And that became real for me doing mentoring at Kimmons Middle School, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. My mentee was not able to do the after school tutoring, and man, I ripped him. You told me you would do this. You promised me you'd do this, and you've got a C in math. For the love of all things holy, can we not do algebra? And he was very apologetic, and I said, what could you possibly have done that kept you from doing this? And he said, I had to go to the boys club because I had to be there by whatever time, 4:00, 4:15, 4:30. And I said, so you went and played basketball instead of doing, mentoring or tutoring after school? And he said, no. He said, Mr. Tim, if I'm not there in line, I don't get to eat. And that's the only food I have in the evening. And it messed me up.
Yeah.
And we started a food bank at Kimmons Middle School that year.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, we don't do these things. We don't give food because we're going to leverage food to push people into the kingdom. But we give food because Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. Mm-hmm. We do this because we want to be Jesus to other people. But I can tell you that if we don't take care of physical needs and basic needs, we may not have the opportunity to share the gospel.
Exactly.
And so we don't leverage this as if we're going to, put somebody in a headlock over, a bag of groceries so that they must hear the gospel.
Yeah.
But we know that because we're meeting physical needs, it opens up an opportunity. It creates some relationship for us to be able to talk about the reason that we're doing this. And so there's a little bit of tension there, because I think sometimes we come across as we're going to do this, but you have to sit through the presentation before we do it. I love what we're doing. We can't brag enough about our food ministry. The folks that are doing that, they will just ask, how you doing? How can we pray for you? Sounds like you've had a rough week. We're going to give you food no matter what, but we'd love to bear some of the burden. And it's those kinds of conversations that lead people to go, maybe I should follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing to see how benevolence or outreach kind of coincides. And some of it is physical needs.
Yeah.
The mentoring is, we're going in and building a relationship over grades. I've got a great kid this year who his every grade went down last week. And we're building a relationship. And so I don't care if he passes all of his classes. I have no emotional engagement there.
I'll be here next year too.
Yeah, I get a whole nother year with him.
Yeah.
But I'm because we're meeting each week, I'm growing to care about this kid.
Yeah.
And so the last time we met, he just came in and said, "Hey, my grades are worse. Can I tell you what's going on in my life?" I'm like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And so, but he tells me all this stuff. We're invested. We're relating now.
Mm-hmm.
And his grades will go up a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We're going to keep this one short, but I just want to say, we've all kind of reiterated this a few times now, but we need people to get involved. And even if you think that you're you told the story of the ladies, it's just not really for me. It's like, Jesus has the invitation multiple times in the Gospels, come and see. It's like, just come and see, and then you decide,
So, as members at Central, we believe there are 5 aspects of ministry that everyone should be involved in. That's large group, small group, Bible study, ministry, and evangelism. And those last 2, ministry and evangelism, coincide a lot. Ministry, yes, that can mean what are you doing within the church to serve, but also where are you plugged in areas that the church is already plugged in, and how are you getting involved, whether that's taking your small group to feed somebody or we're not defining that, but whatever that means. And alongside that, always be kingdom-minded. Evangelism, what opportunities do I have? Not that we're forcing it on someone to get them food and we're going to force you to say this prayer, we're going to force you into this, but provide them what they need. And while we're doing that, the Lord will provide that opportunity.
And I'm sorry, and I think that was kind of the end of, and you articulated that well. We don't want to stop short of doing good deeds.
Yeah.
Without the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do good deeds because we're going to leverage that for the gospel. We do good deeds because we love Jesus. But the best deed is to share the gospel. We have the hope of salvation, and the way Paul describes that in the New Testament is the mystery of the gospel. And the 2 prayers of evangelism in Colossians and Ephesians are, pray for me that I would declare that boldly, and pray for me that I would declare the mystery of the gospel clearly. And that's the thing, that if we only do good things and we stop short of sharing the gospel, we have stopped short of our mission.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it is so valuable, not just that we identify and align with this church or with this faith, but that requires from us, that we sacrifice, that we work, that we do good deeds, that we proclaim the good news. And I think sometimes it's just easy to get into the routine, and we stop short of the gospel.
Yeah.
And Bill and Tim and Blake and who are you, Scott, don't have near as much opportunity on a daily basis to talk with people who need to hear the gospel as the tens of people that will see this podcast. Mm-hmm. And so
another 10 will listen, just not watch.
And so it is important. And I think sometimes we say we want you to be involved in what we're doing corporately. We do. I mean, those are kind of entry level. We want you to see that so that you can see that sharing the gospel is something that we do. Yeah. It's who we are. But it's a lot of fun whenever we see, some of those different outreaches that started with just an idea or a calling. Yeah. I think about this morning I was reaching out to our widows ministry. That started because we had a couple of ladies who said, this is what I've learned in my own grief, and I can help somebody else who's going through this. Yeah. And it's become a phenomenal outreach to people in the worst of times.
Yeah.
It's the call. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're a strategic partner for us, but it started because somebody in our church said, hey, these guys are really working hard to take care of kids that are in the foster system. Yeah. Can we get involved? Absolutely. And it's mentoring. So there's so many of those things that started because one person was in there and said, we can expand this. And so I think oftentimes when we talk about outreach and we talk about especially the holidays, yes, that's low barrier. Time, energy, efforts, just the volunteer army that comes along and says, let's figure out how to love on folks that are in the worst of times, so that they can experience the best of times. Yeah, that's the church.
There's a celebrate a victory. FCA is a big thing for me, and we had challenged one of our members to get involved with us a couple of years ago. We promoted him this year. He's the administrator of what we're doing there. He plans all the activities, takes care of it. The other day he called me and he said, hey, do you remember so-and-so? Yeah. Well, he's coming to the youth group tonight. This kid's he's not at Darby anymore. He's over at Northside, but he remembered a guy, and he's because of an involvement, and he reached out. And first, Patrick was bringing the kid himself. And the other day I saw his grandma out there who was dropping him off. And now I have a friendship with his grandma, and we've invited her to come. So this is how you can get involved through the schools. Okay. Awesome. And then one last one for me. I'm leaving this. Is this a podcast? Is this what this is? I'm leaving this.
Yes. Yeah, this is a podcast, Bill.
I'm leaving this to go over to the rescue mission. And one of our members called me and said, hey, I have a person that I've become acquainted with. Her name is so-and-so there. When's the next time you're going over there? Would you? And she gave me her name. And so I'm going to look for her this morning. Not so I can have a relationship, but so that lady can say, hey, yeah, Bill came over because such and such. So we have opportunities for you to be involved.
I think more, just to say it like a little more bluntly, we don't just have opportunities. It's we need more people.
Yeah.
And that's in all areas. It's like, even down to this isn't outreach or benevolence, door greeters. Like if we don't have enough door greeters, we don't have enough people going to community rescue mission. I got an email this week from the lady who runs Southside at Mentoring, and she's like, I have a lot of kids who need mentors right now, and I don't have mentors. And if anybody, in this email chain knows of somebody who would step up and come and mentor. So it's like, don't hear us saying, we have these really great things going on just so you know about them. It's like, we need you to come be involved in these things. We need, or even talking about what we're doing for the holidays. We're supporting a nursing home. We're supporting the Kistler Center. Happy Birthday, Jesus. We support all these different ministries. Don't just hear that as like, oh, yeah, we're doing these really cool things. It's like, no, we need you to give. If you don't give, we can't support these ministries, these outreach programs that we're supposed to be providing for.
I think as a practical application here, one of the things that, because we're so busy, because we cram every moment with activity, and I'm guilty and you guys are guilty. I see your work schedules. I think if somebody's going to take the challenge seriously of being involved in outreach, or it requires some planning. We're really good at the stuff we plan to do, and then we react to a whole lot of other things. But if we don't build a little bit of margin into our budget, if we don't build a little bit of margin into our calendar, then we don't get to, if we're taking that walk with open eyes, we don't get to be prepared. And so, for our family, we typically, what we would spend on one of our children is what we set aside to be prepared, so that when somebody says, hey, can you buy a toy for, a kid with special needs whose family we're going to serve? Absolutely, we can do that. Hey, can you set aside an evening to help come cook and serve some people? You know what? We have set aside that time in our calendar. And I don't know how that practically plays out for everybody, because we're all busy, because we all have jobs, because Christmas is the worst time of the year to do anything because we're so full of activity. But to intentionally set aside some time so that we can be available when the Lord says, here's an opportunity. And so that would be the challenge that I would give to people who get to watch this is do you have some time? Do you have some energy? Do you have some funds that you can set aside, create some margins so that you're prepared? And then if we're going to play that out, maybe do that again in January.
Yeah.
And again in February and again in March. And so, it would be pretty cool if 600 people who are there on a Sunday morning also set aside, an hour a month or 2 hours a month, becomes some pretty significant impact in the community for the gospel.
For sure. I think we'll end on that. We hope that you heed the call that we're putting out there, and the invitation. Just like Jesus said, the gospel's come and see. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. We want this to be a conversation that continues. We'd love to hear from you, not just about, this topic, but, anything you might want to discuss, hear about on the podcast. If you have a question, topic, subject, we're game. We're open. So looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time.